you're not going to grow on TikTok or Reels or LinkedIn if you're just posting about your company. Like you have to be willing to not talk about your product and to focus on who you like, what your brand voice is, your brand personality, what your brand's message is overall. And so there's just, for a lot of people are going to try it and a lot of people are going to fail at it, but there are going to be some companies that succeed and do it really well. I'm Anna, obviously. I'm the marketing manager at curated. I was talking to you a little bit before we started doing the formal recording, but I have about 6 years experience within EdTech, which is education technology. So I've worked with schools of all sizes and all over the world, from like small independent schools in Dubai to the largest public school districts within the United States, so like Miami-Dade or Houston Independent School District. So worked with a really wide audience with deploying education technology solutions within the schools. So those have been things from like curriculum mapping platforms to computer science programming. And then most recently with curated, we provide a school administration platform, which really gives schools the ability to generate money, because right now, like schools, especially within COVID, are really struggling to keep their doors open. So this is a great way to help them like uncover revenue in places they maybe didn't realize they had it before. So why I'm really passionate about EdTech is I've worked with students hands-on in the capacity of a teacher, as like an in-home tutor as well. And I've done teacher training as well. And so I think that education technology gives schools the ability to reach more students. Like obviously they have their student body, but the way that education is currently delivered is it only speaks to a small segment of how students learn. So I think that EdTech can really open the door for all students to be able to really uncover learning within the school system. So to me, it's changing what teaching and learning looks like. And I love being a part of that journey with teachers and with school leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you've been doing content-driven marketing and doing EdTech for quite some time. Do you know why you were sort of driven more in this like content space, as opposed to maybe someone like myself who started off as like an SDR, a little bit more like what kind of drew your interest and attention to like the content side of things?
Yeah. So really respect your work within sales. I could never do it. I am not the sort of person that can pick up a phone and call people.
I can barely do it.
Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for salespeople. It is not my area of strength. And so I came from within education and then migrated into EdTech through professional development, and then ended up taking on a company's blog. And what I liked about that work and why I think content marketing piqued my interest is, when you think about education, and if you've ever worked with young kids, like whether or not it was as a teacher or just like babysitting, it's all about relationship building with them to get them to listen to you, right? Like you can't just tell them to do something. They have to like trust you, and you have to understand them enough to make them want to do something. So it's a lot of it's this psychology of working with other people. So when I started off in content marketing, I think why I enjoyed it so much was it was an opportunity to apply the principles I had learned within the classroom now within a business setting. So I never thought I would go into business. I was an international development major. I studied Arabic. I actually did work within the intelligence community while in college. And so I always wanted to be able to build relationships with the people I worked with. And I wasn't like, I didn't want to go in and like drive these hard sales for businesses. That's not who I am. I'm not a convincing person. I'm not someone who like, I don't have enough confidence to like take a stand and be like, you need this. I'm more like, help me understand whether or not you need something. Like I want to understand what your problems are, and I want to share knowledge with you and exchange knowledge. And a lot of that comes from that instructional background. So for me, content was a way to help businesses, especially within education, build relationships with their audience and exchange knowledge with them the same way that I would have done when I was in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. So, like, you've obviously been doing content marketing before COVID, and a lot of companies are starting to dabble into it now because of COVID. Have you noticed any contrast or any trends between content marketing before COVID and after COVID, or just your thoughts on the space where we live right now in January 2021?
It's a great question. And I feel like I've got two directions I could take it in. So let me start with number one, is that about 5, 6 years ago, everyone was doing content marketing. Like they were like, let's do content. And it didn't work for most companies because they weren't doing it correctly. They were publishing a blog with 500 words. It was just a sales pitch. And they were like, well, why is no one getting a demo? And that's not the goal of content marketing. Like the goal of content isn't to get someone to read a blog and to get a demo. It's to get them to read a blog and to walk away and remember your company and remember you because you are an expert in the area that they're looking for solutions for. And that doesn't come through your product, that comes through your knowledge. And so that was like 5 years ago. And I feel like now everyone again is like, let's do content marketing. And it's like a bit of like a whiplash. And I'm fearful that a lot of companies are going to, again, in a few months be like, it's not working for us and just abandon it altogether again. And so I think that's one thing I've seen a lot of companies put out content, but that doesn't, like, not all content's created equal. So I think that's like one trend. But the other trend that I'm seeing is that there are some companies that are doing it really well. And they know that it's not just about publishing a blog. Like Google is it's such an overcrowded space now with SEO. Like it is very hard to rank in the algorithm organically. So companies are now looking at other ways to be able to distribute content. So that's where you see things like podcasts, like what you're doing right here, what I'm doing. You're seeing not so much webinars, but meetings that happen over Zoom where you invite in a large group of people, and it's much more like an AMA or a workshop or something like that, like just giving out essentially trainings for free. It's people publishing and sharing videos on LinkedIn, for example, as well. So I'm seeing a change in the type of content that people are publishing. When companies are doing it well, they're recognizing that it's about meeting your audience where they are and on the platforms that they're on. So that's why I think you're seeing a ton more professionals flock to LinkedIn. And it is one of the easiest platforms to organically grow on right now too. But I'm really curious, like, I don't know if you're on Clubhouse. I'm on it. I haven't totally used it, but I'm really curious to see what happens with Clubhouse as more of an audio platform for content distribution. Yeah. So I think that there's also a change in the type of content. It's much more audio and visual, and it's less focused on just the Google algorithm. Like we're expanding the definition of what content can be for a company.
Do you have any thoughts on Reels or TikToks or like this micro video content space?
I do. So I'm a huge TikTok user. I spend an embarrassing amount of time on it. And I think it can be an effective platform to reach some audiences. I mean, obviously you want to make sure like your target audience is on there, but for us, like we want to reach teachers. There are tons of teachers on TikTok. So it's a great way for us to get involved there, or with Reels, because with Instagram, it's so hard to organically grow on that platform right now. Like it requires, they want you to pay to grow on it. So they make it as hard as they can to organically grow on it. But Reels are like the one way that you can just get in front of people. Like we'll post a Reel, and right now what we're doing is we're finding TikToks of teachers, downloading them and uploading them as a Reel on our account. And we're tagging the teachers in it. We're like, hey, go give them a follow. But like, this was something that like made us laugh or made us smile and relates to us in some way. And we'll get 350, 400 likes on it in a day in some cases. So it's like, we are getting out in front of the right audience. So I think, and we're just about to start dabbling in TikTok too. I think there's I hired someone to help us manage our social media for that perspective, and TikTok's new to him. So I think there's a bit of trepidation in terms of like how do I know if what I'm putting out there is funny or if it relates to them? And I'm like, it's okay to like put something up and it not get the traction you want. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. That just means we try something different. But I do think that there is a ton of opportunity for companies to utilize TikTok and Reels as ways to also organically grow on social media. In a similar way that like it's easy to grow right now organically on LinkedIn, with Reels and TikTok, it's also pretty easy to organically grow. One of the, like, I follow the Washington Post on TikTok, and I swear they've just like hired some like young Gen Z millennial guy, and that's his only job is to run their TikTok. But when I try to tell our social media person like the direction we want to go, I'm like, look at what the Washington Post is doing, because it's not about their newspaper per se, but what the content they're putting out is news-based content, but it's making people laugh or smile or giving people information, and like that's how you build your audience on there. It's the same thing of like, you go back 5 years ago to those blog posts people were putting out, like you're not going to grow on TikTok or Reels or LinkedIn if you're just posting about your company. Like you have to be willing to not talk about your product and to focus on who you like, what your brand voice is, your brand personality, what your brand's message is overall. And so there's just, for a lot of people are going to try it and a lot of people are going to fail at it, but there are going to be some companies that succeed and do it really well. So I want to make sure like when we go that direction that we are one of those companies that succeed, that we've researched it and we know what our goal is on it.
So obviously, like content marketing, like you said, the objective of content marketing isn't to convert in the sense of like how many demos can we get out of this, but like building a relationship, building that brand story. Then how can we truly track the success, or how do we, how can we focus on things that will continue to yield success as opposed to maybe, things that might be dead in the water, if you will?
It's such a great question. And so one of the people I follow on LinkedIn is Chris Walker, and he's helped shape how I look at marketing. So he looks at it from two perspectives. There's brand marketing and there's performance marketing. And he says, and I think that this is so true, when brand marketing's done well, it should almost all your revenue should come from the performance side. Like it should just amplify your work you're doing on the performance end. So some of the ways that because when I think about content marketing, that's brand marketing. When I think about social media, brand marketing. So some of the ways we track it in terms of how it connects to our performance, because we don't just go for vanity metrics. Like 100 more social media followers is awesome, but if it's not the right audience and we're not ultimately getting what we need out of them in the long run, it's not working. So some of what we track is like, I spend a lot of time looking at, for example, behavior flows on our website through Google Analytics. So someone's coming in from social media, what's the journey that they're taking on our website? So making sure that if we're driving people to the site from social, that they're going to the pages we want them to see. I also look at a lot of first touch attribution. So looking at what was the first point at which someone interacted with our company. And we've seen a ton of growth that it's our webinars, for example, or it's they're coming through social media, which means they came through us promoting our podcasts and our blog posts, or they're coming to like they subscribe to our newsletter first. And so we're tracking how we're getting people into the funnel. And that happens a lot through the brand side. So we do a lot of measurement with attribution and looking at the behavior flows on our website to understand how that's ultimately shaping our funnel. And the thing is we are noticing a massive impact on revenue. Like we're able to pull that. I pull revenue from two perspectives. I look at marketing source revenue. So like how many people came through a get a demo ad that ended up becoming a customer. So we generated that revenue for you. And then how many were influenced by marketing's work. And it's wild to look at the difference in the two numbers. Both are sizable, but the ones that are interacting with us on social media that have subscribed to our newsletter, I mean, it accounts for a massive proportion of the total revenue that's being brought in. Almost every lead, even if it was a lead from an SDR, they're interacting with our marketing content in some capacity. So it also helps, like brand marketing, you have to think about it from the perspective too. It helps make that journey to a customer more sticky, and it helps make that customer, after their like lifetime value, it increases it because they stay on with you longer. So we're looking at it from the perspective of like, how do we get people into the funnel through the brand side, but also what is the influence while they're in that funnel that our branded marketing assets have had, and then when they're a customer as well. And I've only been at the company for about 5 months. They just recently invested in marketing, but those are numbers we're actively tracking. So a year from now, we can go back and pull like, what if a customer interacted with our branded content, were they more likely to still be a customer a year after that, or were they less likely? If it was a lead, even if it came from an SDR, did they interact with our marketing content? Did they have a higher proportion of closing? Was it a quicker time to close? So we're getting really creative with how we can measure it in the long run.
That's awesome. Really, really great insight. Chris Walker is definitely like a go-to source in the marketing space. So anyone listening out there, definitely check him out. Anna, I really got to tip my hat off to you, just because, again, I know we said this kind of off the record earlier, but like, I don't really see a lot of ed tech companies doing podcasts, or I feel like there's a huge opportunity for ed tech companies specifically to invest in content and invest in podcasts. So outside of like that, any advice do you have for like early stage ed tech startups? I'm sure there's going to be a bunch to emerge with everything that's going on, as far as like doing things outside of like sales efforts, but like you said, investing in that content, that brand, that story. Any advice for ed tech companies out there specifically?
Yes. Where to start? I think when I came in, the company had been around for a few years, and for the first time they were investing in marketing. And so I came in to help them build their marketing strategy. And they had email lists they had bought, right? Like most companies do. They were doing cold outreach, which was getting them sales. SDRs are effective, our AEs are effective, but it was the only way they were getting sales is if they went out and got in front of people. Like there wasn't an inbound marketing funnel. We weren't really visible on Google. We weren't optimized. So if people were even Googling like us and we would have been a potential solution provider, we weren't showing up in the SERP by any means. So when I told them they needed to invest in content, it was because we had to build our audience. Like we had to start getting an organic audience that was subscribed to us, that was revisiting our website, that was interacting with our content in some capacity. And so within the first month of just adding in some optimized content, we increased traffic by organic search by 750% to our website. And just by the podcast is great because we get people who are following us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but we've thrown it, we primarily use it because it gives us videos that we can use on social media. So when we used to only get 100 impressions on a tweet, we now get 30,000 on our average tweet. And so it's by creating valuable content that we've just expanded our reach and the number of people who are coming into a contact with our brand on a daily basis. And this happens on Instagram, it happens on LinkedIn, it happens on Twitter, it happens just through organic traffic via Google. And so there's so many ways that we're using this content just to make a name for ourselves out there, so that if we're creating content that delights people, that informs people, they're recognizing who our brand is, and we're able to see that impact on revenue, as I mentioned. So that's why I think it's important, especially for ed tech companies, because I think so many are like, this is like, because it doesn't have an immediate impact on revenue, they might not invest in it because they're not like, you can't show the impact on revenue. Like SDR made a call, book demo with AE closed deal. Like it's not as like pretty a journey as that. But it's allowed us to, for the first time, to have people coming inbound to us and saying, I want a demo. I want to learn more about your solution. Wow, I didn't know this solution existed. before. Like, this has been something I've been looking for. And so it's brought people into our funnel that way. In terms of like advice on the storytelling side, it's that make sure you have something, like just have something to say. And it's not as complicated as people think. Like there are millions of blogs on almost every single topic on the internet. But the ones that are doing well, they're just saying what their message is just a little bit differently than the others. So it's not like you have to completely reinvent the wheel, but know what your voice is and share information through that voice, through that lens. So with Curated, our whole thing is we help, like, all of our competitors say like, oh, we'll save you money, we'll save you time, you can focus more on kids, which is like what every ed tech company out there says. Yep. But we're saying like, yeah, we'll save you time, we'll save you money, but we're actually going to make you money. Like, we're a revenue focused platform for schools, and no one else out there is saying that right now. So everything, every podcast, every blog we put out there, every social post, it comes from that perspective of like, we are the revenue experts for schools. And so that we judge whether or not we take on a project based off of whether or not it helps us tell that story better. So just know what your voice is, know what your perspective is, and just start talking, like just start putting content out there.
Yeah, 100%. Hot topic, hot question to finish off our episode here, Anna. In 2021, is content marketing a nice to have or a necessity?
It's definitely a necessity, but only if you're going to do it right. Like if you don't want to do it, or you just want to do it to check a box, then don't do it. Like, just keep on doing what you're doing. Fine. Like, I get really tired of people saying like, we tried content, it didn't work. And I go back and this happens all the time. Like, I'll just get on like a video call with people for free because they'll be like, it's not working for me. And I'm like, I'll give you 30 minutes. Like, let's just look through it. Like, I don't sell any sort of content marketing services, but I'm genuinely passionate about the impact it can have on ed tech companies. So I'm more than happy to hop on a phone call and talk to you about your strategy. And I look at it and I'm like, well, of course this wasn't working. Like this, like what was the research behind this blog post that you chose, for example? Did you look at any sort of keyword tool? Like, why did you choose this keyword? Like, what was the lens you brought to it? Like, it's the last 4 paragraphs are all talking about how great your company is. Like, of course, no one actually read the blog post. So it's like, I believe it is a necessity, but only if you're going to do it right. And take the time to do it right, I think is what my message is. Like, the dividends will pay off. Like, I have built content strategies at 3-4 companies now, like extensive content strategies, and it pays off every single time.
That's cash money right there, Anna. Thank you so much. This has been super fruitful. You got me pumped to just like you said, like do it right, like make it all about them.
Yeah. Exactly. And it because it's how you build that trust and that loyalty and that relationship, is when they don't feel like you are selling to them, but they don't need to know that. And even if they do know that, it's like they don't feel that pressure to buy, because you're still going to give it to them for free no matter what. So like we're always going to be pumping out helpful content, whether or not the person listening to it buys from us, because it's, even if they just share it because it was that beneficial to them, it's putting us in front of someone else in their network who might buy from us. So there's a benefit to it just being informational, and to help you, again, as I mentioned, like build your reach, build that audience organically, so that we will continue investing in SDRs and AEs. They're an important channel for us, but we also need a way that we can have a predictable source of revenue that we know is coming in every single month, because we have that inbound funnel, because people are also finding us organically.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't agree with you more, Anna. Thank you so much for providing your insight and context here. For anyone listening out there that would like to pick your brain a little bit more on content marketing or just ed tech in general, where's the best place to reach you?
Just find me on LinkedIn, send me a connection. I accept every single connection unless it's a blatant sales pitch, which those are really obvious to find. But so just send me a connection, shoot me a DM. I'll 100% respond to you. I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's the best place to get in touch with me.
Anna, thank you so much. It means the world.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Catch y'all in the next one.